Introduction. The science of the mechanics. 1. That branch of physics which is at once the oldest and the simplest and which is therefore treated as introductory to other departments of the science is concerned with the motion and equilibrium of the masses. It bears the name of mechanics. 2. The history of the development of the mechanics is quite indispensable to a full comprehension of the science in its present condition. It also affords a simple and instructive example of the processes by which natural science generally is developed. An instinctive, irreflective knowledge of the processes of the nature will doubtless always precedes a scientific conscious apprehension or investigation of the phenomena. The former is the outcome of the relation in which the process of the nature stands to the satisfaction of our wants. The acquisition of the most elementary truths does not devolve upon the individual alone. It is pretty effective in the development of the race. In the point of fact, it is necessary to make a distinction between the mechanical experience and the mechanical science, in the sense in which the latter terms is at present employed. Mechanical experiences are unquestionably very old. If we certainly examine the ancient Egyptian and Assyrian monuments, we shall find their pictorial representation of the many kinds of the implements and mechanical contrivances. Wow. But accounts of the scientific knowledge of these peoples are either totally lacking or point conclusively to a very inferior grade of attainment. By the side of the highly ingenious appliances, we behold the crudest and the roughest expedients employed as the use of the sleds, for instance, for the transportation of the enormous blocks of the stone. All bears are instinctive, unperfected, accidental character. So, too, prehistoric graves contain implements whose constructions and employment imply no little skill and much mechanical experience. Thus, long before theory was dreamed of, implements, machines, mechanical experiments, and mechanical knowledge were abundant. 3. The idea often suggests itself that perhaps the incomplete accounts we possess have led us to underrate the science of the ancient world. The passages occur in ancient author which seems to indicate a profounder knowledge than we are wont to ascribe to those nations. Take, for instance, the following passage from Vitruvius de Architectura, Lib 5, Chapter 3:6. The voice is a flowing breeze, made sensible to the organ of hearing by the movements it produces in the air. It is propagated in the infinite numbers of circular zones, exactly as when a stone is thrown into the pool of standing water. Countless circular undulations are generated, serene, which, increasing as they recede from the center, spread out over a great distance, unless the narrowness of the locality or some obstacles prevent their reaching their termination. For the first line of the waves, when impeded by the obstructions thrown by their backward swells, succeeding circular lines of waves into the confusion. conformably to the very same law. The voice also generates circular motions, but with this distinction, that is, that in water circles remaining upon the surface are propagated horizontally only, while the voice is propagated both horizontally and vertically. Does not this sound like the imperfect exposition of the popular author drawn from a more accurate descriptions now lost? In what a strange light should we of ourselves appear centuries hence, if our popular literature, which by reason of its quality is less easily destructible, should alone outlive the production of the science? This too favorable view, however, is very rudely shaken by the multitude of the other passages containing such a crude and patent errors as cannot be conceived to exist in any high stages of scientific culture. Okay. Four. When, where, and in what manner the development of science actually began is at this day difficult historically to determine. It appears reasonable to assume, however, that the instinctive gathering of the experimental facts preceded the scientific classification of them. Traces of these processes may still be detected in the science of today. Indeed, they are to be met with now and then in ourselves. The experiments that man heedlessly and instinctively makes in his struggles to satisfy his wants are just as thoughtlessly and unconsciously applied. Here, for instance, belong the primitive experiments concerning the application of the lever in all its manifold forms, but the things that are thus unthinkingly and instinctively discovered can never appear as peculiar, can never strike us as surprising, and as a rule therefore will never supply an impetus to further thoughts. Sure, impetus. The transition from this stage to the classified scientific knowledge and apprehension of the facts first becomes possible on the rise of the special classes and professions who make the satisfaction of definite social wants their lifelong vocation. A class of this sort occupies itself with particular kinds of natural processes. The individuals of the class change. Old members drop out and new ones come in. Thus arises a need of imparting to those who are newly come in the stock of the experience and knowledge already possessed. A need of acquainting them with the condition of the attainment of the definite end, so that the result may be determined beforehand. The communication of knowledge is thus the first occasion that comprises distinct reflection, as everybody can still observe in himself. Further, that which the whole old members of the guide mechanically pursue strikes a new member as unusual and strange, and thus an impulse is given to the fresh reflection and investigation. Sure. Where we wish to bring to the knowledge of a person any phenomena or processes of nature, we have the choice of two methods. We may allow the person to observe matters for himself when his instruction comes to an end, or we may describe to him the phenomena in some way so as to save him the trouble of personally making anew each experiment. Description, however, is only possible of events that constantly recur, or of events that are made up of component parts that constantly recur. That only can be described and conceptually represented, which is uniform and comfortable to law. For description, presupposes the employment of the names by which to designate its elements, and names can acquire meanings only when applied to the elements that constantly reappear. 5. In the finite variety of the nature, may ordinary events occur, while others appears uncommon, perplexing, astonishing, or even contradictory to the ordinary run of the things. As long as this is the case, we do not possess a well-settled and unitary conception of the nature. Thence imposes the task of everywhere seeking out in the natural phenomena those elements that are the same and that amid all multiplicity are ever present. By this means, on the one hand, the most economical and briefest description and communications are rendered possible, and on the other, when once a person has acquired the skill of recognizing these paramount elements throughout the greatest range and variety of the phenomena of seeing them in the same, this ability leads to the comprehensive, compact, consistent, and facile conception of the facts. When once we have reached the point where we are everywhere able to detect the same few simple elements combining in the ordinary manner, then they appear to us as things that are familiar. We are no longer surprised. There is nothing new or strange to us in the phenomena. We feel at home with them. They no longer perplex us. They are explained. It is a process of adaptation of sorts to fact with which we are here concerned. Six. Economy of the communication and apprehension is of the very essence of the science. Herein lies its pacificatory, its enlightening, its refining element. Herein, too, we possesses an unerring guide to the historical origin of the science. In the beginning, all economy had in the immediate view the satisfaction simply of the bodily wants. With the artisan, and still more so with the investigator, the conscientist and simplest possible knowledge of the given province of the natural phenomena, a knowledge that is attained with the least intellectual expenditure, naturally becomes in itself an economical aim, but though it was at first a means to an end, when the mental motivates connected therewith are once developed and demand their satisfaction, all sort of its original purpose, the personal need disappears. To find, then, what remains unaltered in the phenomena of the nature, to discover the elements thereof and mode of their interconnections and interdependence. This is a business of physical science. It develops by comprehensive and through description to make the waiting for new experiences unnecessary. It seeks to save us the trouble of experimentation by making use, for example, of the known interdependence of the phenomena, according to which if one kind of the events occurs, we may be sure beforehand that a certain other event will occur. Yeah, this is analogy, right? This is all about analogy. Even in the description itself, labor may be saved by discovering a method of describing the greatest possible number of the different objects at once and in the concisest manner. All this will be made clearer by the examination of points of the detail than can be done by a general discussion. It is fitting, however, to prepare the way at this stage for the most important points of the outlook, which in the course of our work we shall have occasion to occupy. We now propose to enter more maturely into the subject of our inquiries, and at the same time, without making the history of mechanics the chief topic of the discussion, to consider its historical development, so far as this is requisite to an understanding of the present state of the mechanical science, and so far as it does not conflict with the unity of the treatment of our main subject. Apart from the consideration that we cannot afford to neglect the great incentives that is in our power to derive from the foremost intellects of all epochs. Incentives which, takes as a whole, are more fruitful than the greatest men of the present day are able to offer. There is no grander, no more intellectually elevating spectacle than that of the utterance of the fundamental investigators in their gigantic power. Possesses as yet of no methods, for these were first created by their labors, and are only rendered comprehensible to us by their performances. They grappled with and subjugated the object of their inquiry, and imprint upon it the form of conceptual thought. They that know the entire course of the development of the science will, as a matter of course, judge more fully and more correctly of the significance of any present scientific movement than they who, limited in their views to the age in which their own lives have been spent, contemplate merely the maneuvery trend that the course of the intellectual events takes at the present moment.